Namo Amida Butsu. Elitism is a worldview that someone has because of their income bracket or class upbringing, where this individual believes they are better than another person who is of a different income bracket or resides in another place in society. Elitists are not necessarily rich people. I have met people who were very elitist in their mindset, who were residents of homeless shelters. And you're thinking, well, why would someone living in a homeless shelter think they were better than anyone else, or think they were elitist? Because at one time they were, top dollar chefs. They were, they worked for this company. They were, airplane pilots. They grew up in a very rich neighborhood in a very wealthy family. And so the way they treat others who they perceive to be beneath them is to condescend to them and to talk down to them like they're stupid. And what does this have to do with Pure Land Buddhism, Dave? Why are you talking? Why are you going on this rant about elitism? Did someone piss you off? No. I've just been thinking about it. It's Amitabha Buddha is the perfect, unattainable example of the very opposite of elitism. Amitabha Buddha is the greatest of all enlightened Buddhas, and yet no one escapes his compassionate primal vow, his vow to save all sentient beings. And we all have our prejudices, we all have our judgments. Some of us judge according to race, income bracket, religion. I definitely have a problem with that, coming up from a very strict, narrow-minded, fundamentalist Southern Baptist Christian upbringing. And I don't know that will ever go away. It'll most likely, soften with time due to my relationship with Amitabha Buddha, but it will only be because of my relationship with Amitabha Buddha it'll soften. But elitism doesn't just have to do with someone's income bracket. Elitism can be because of, you're a certain race in a certain temple that caters to a certain race. I've encountered a lot of that in Buddhism. I've gone to temples that are Korean, Vietnamese. I actually had one guy at a Vietnamese temple I was training at, sitting in front of me before a church service, a temple service, and the guy turned around and looked at me, and he was a white English-speaking American who was married to a Vietnamese woman in the congregation, and I spoke to him, "Good morning." That's all I said. And the guy looked at me, didn't say a word, didn't acknowledge me, turned to his Vietnamese friend and said something to him in Vietnamese, totally ignoring me, before participating in the Mahayana Dharma service. This could be seen as not only racism, but a very clear example of religious elitism. It's like, I no longer associate with people like you. I'm I now identify as Vietnamese, or, it's another form of delusion. And we delude ourselves constantly. Honestly, we can't help ourselves. We can change to a certain extent, but we are unenlightened, and our mind and our perceptions are unenlightened. There are people who, you can see it when you interact with people who are elitists. They either don't speak to you or they talk down to you like you're a child. Now, I'm nearly 60 years old. I'm 59. I'll be 60 September the 15th of this year. But there are people who I meet when I'm going for a walk in a nice neighborhood. And I'm there, admiring the beautiful plants and everything. And people will look at you and say, because you're dressed a certain way, or, because obviously I'm a hippie. I'm clean and everything, but I'm a bearded, ear-ringed, long-haired hippie with, and I'm a Buddhist, and I've experienced elitism in Buddhist temples, not only from people who were Asian, but people who were, WASPs, white people, white, rich yuppies who, you're some straggler that came in, because for them it was about status. And that's the thing that's why I'm making this video. It's not about me ranting about anything. It is what it is. There are people who are elitist, there are people who are not. Hey, you do you, man. You do your karma and the results of your karma. I'm going to stick with Amitabha Buddha. But it's something I've been thinking about. What is the major problem in our government? Is it left versus right? No, it's rich elitists who are completely out of touch with the majority of the population they reside over. Now, like I said, Amitabha Buddha is the perfect example of what an elitist is not, what a racist is not, what an individual who judges someone according to their race, their religion, their background, their social history is not. Amitabha Buddha is the all-encompassing greatest of all Buddhas. And this is why I love and appreciate Amitabha so much. Because Amitabha Buddha looked at my past, my life, my upbringing, and I did not grow up in poverty. I was not rich by any means. My father was always in debt, but he was a professional engineer. He worked for an oil company for many, many years until, his calling off sick all the time, because my dad became obsessed with the fear of dying and his health. And so, finally, he couldn't hold down a job because, the guy never showed up for work. That was a perfect example for me not to follow. And I have been very successful in being the polar opposite of my parents, their belief system, their view on life. I'm kind of the opposite of my father in terms of going to work. This has been very weird for me, this lockdown, because usually I end up being sent home from work if I'm sick. But, if I can walk, if I can stand, if I'm not, hacking and throwing up and, having the chills, I'll go to work. That's not the case now, of course. I'm taking my vacation to add an extra 2 weeks, because I want everything set up when I go to work. But the thing is, Amitabha Buddha is, instead of being all narcissistic, and he cannot be narcissistic because no Buddha, no enlightened Buddha can be a narcissist. But contrary to being a narcissist and thinking, oh, I'm all that, he goes, what do all sentient beings feel? He knows us intimately. He knows us better than we know ourselves. And so even though we cannot help the prejudices and the judgments in many cases that we were raised with, or that we conned ourselves into believing, there are elitists that don't necessarily come from rich backgrounds. There are people who have made a lot of money through whatever means, sometimes drug dealers, I'm sorry, who can be drug addicts. They think they're better than others. And that's why I have to remind myself I'm no better than anyone else. The only thing that makes me special is Amitabha Buddha and his primal vow. The only thing that I have going for me right now is the Nembutsu, said in faith and gratitude, while knowing that Amitabha has saved me through his other power and will bring me to his pure land. And so, rather than being angry and hating people who are conceited, who think they're better than me, who talk down to me even though I'm a 59-year-old man, soon to be 60, I have to understand, where was I before I even started on the Buddhist path? Now, Reverend Joshua Adrian Serlia said in a post he posted on VK, we should remember that Amitabha Buddha has had us before his eyes for countless lifetimes. He has been working on us to slowly bring us to the point of ripening our faith so that we can entrust to him through many, many lifetimes, many incarnations. But the only real change, noticeable change in my karma, in my life, in the way I interact with my reality, in the way I view my reality, has come after my choice to live a life of simple faith in Amitabha Buddha. And only then have I noticed a real change in my personality, in my outlook. I, of course, cannot take credit for any of that. I can't take credit for checking out the Pure Land path, which led me to this point. All of this is the work of other power. This is the work of Amitabha Buddha in my life. The desire to say the Nembutsu, to hold my ninju in my hands, and to say Namo Amida Bu. This comes from Amitabha Buddha. Amitabha Buddha is the very essence of non-discriminative, all-encompassing love and compassion. And so as we look at the train wreck worldwide caused by rich 1% elitists throughout our globe, we need to remember that not only are they not any better than anyone else, neither are we. And I have to remind myself whenever I encounter someone who is an elitist, you're no better than them. you have prejudices and delusions and angry, violent, sometimes violent, judgmental thoughts against all sorts of people at any given moment in time. And those thoughts and judgments can change in the blink of an eye. We're fickle. We're conceited. We're egotistical. Why? Because we're unenlightened. And I'm sorry. Sitting in a corner, looking at a wall, trying to clear your mind, it ain't gonna change much, man. It'll make you calmer for that moment until someone else pisses you off, until someone else looks down their nose at you, or until you look down your nose at someone else, or you piss someone else off and create a conflict. Because we are not enlightened, and we are unable to enlighten ourselves with our unenlightened thoughts and mind. This is why it is so important to focus on the Buddha Amitabha, the Buddha of infinite light and life, because he is the greatest of all Buddhas. He is the perfect, unattainable example in this life, not when we become a Buddha, but in this life. He is an unattainable example of perfection in what it means to be an enlightened, fully enlightened being. And for that reason, I am grateful. And for that reason, I just simply accept that I am who I am. And I cling to the sleeves of Amida, and I trust him to do what he knows must be done in my life, in my thoughts, in my emotions, in my outlook. Because Amitabha Buddha is my savior, and he knows me so much better than I can ever know myself. Namo Amida Butsu.